think I took my blood pressure meds before I came in. We have a quorum, so
Under.
let us proceed. Mike, Vincent, do you want to be chair again, or do you want to be chair, Mike Corrales, but you're leaving, aren't you?
I have no paperwork and I will split as soon as we vote.
Mike Vincent, would you like to be?
Sure. I can do that.
We'll
So you
just-
want to, do you want to stick with the agenda then and go with the,
Yeah, we're just going to go through with the script as it
Okay.
is.
okay, so let's get started then. And it is 7:17. And I call the June 21st, 2022 regular meeting of the Franklin County Planning Commission meeting to order. Before we get into the meeting, I'll turn things over to staff to discuss the meeting format.
Tonight's meeting will be conducted through a hybrid in-person online meeting platform. We do not have any planning commissioners attended via the internet. However, we do have one calling in. So if any planning commissioner becomes unexpectedly disconnected, please rejoin the meeting at your first opportunity. The record will reflect your attendance. The meeting will be paused for up to 10 minutes to address technical difficulties. If they cannot be resolved within 10 minutes, then the meeting will proceed so long as a quorum of planning commissioners are present. Please mute phone when not speaking. This is to the public. If you wish to comment or need clarification on a public hearing item, please send us an email at planninginquiry, all one word, at franklincountywA.gov, and Franklin County WA is all one word. Before the public comment period closes, once public comment period is closed on said item, comments will not be included as part of the discussion. To those in attendance, please remember to speak into the microphone when addressing staff or public comments testimonies.
Will planning staff please call roll and announce whether or not we have a quorum?
Mike Corrales.
Present.
Mike Vincent.
Here.
Peter Harpster.
Here.
Manny Gutierrez.
Here.
Stacy Knifton.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Will staff in attendance please introduce yourselves?
Derek Broughton, Director of Planning and Building Department.
Ryan Nelson, Planner 1.
Aaron Gunderson, Planner 1.
Okay, I will now lead in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
The second?
So that was moved by Commissioner Knifton,
Yes.
I second.
seconded by Gutierrez.
Second. Okay, it is now time for the public hearing portion of our meeting. Good evening and welcome. I will turn things briefly over to our staff host, who will go over the ground rules for tonight's hearing.
Here are the ground rules for tonight's hybrid meeting, or hearing. In-person public testimony will be divided into two groups, for and against / neutral. They will be called upon to speak during their allotted in-person public testimony section, giving their name for the audio record and position on the proposal. Call-in public testimony will be called upon individually during the call-in public testimony portion of the hearing, giving their name for the audio record as well as if they are in favor, neutral, or against the proposal. Please mute audio when not speaking. Emailed comments received during the public hearing will be read into the record by staff after the call-in public testimony section of the hearing. All comments and questions shall be addressed to the Planning Commission and should be relevant to the application and not be of a personal nature. Each speaker shall have 5 minutes to provide testimony and shall speak into the microphone. Please avoid repetitive comments. If there are a large number of speakers who are part of a group or organization, please select a representative to speak on behalf of the group. Behavior such as clapping, booing, hissing, or remarks is prohibited. Every citizen here tonight should have the opportunity to testify without such distractions.
Are there any questions regarding the public hearing ground rules? Seeing none, let's keep in mind that we are prohibited by law from communicating with members of the public on the subject matter of these hearings, except in these hearings. We also may not participate in a decision in which there is an appearance of conflict of interest to the average person. So let's take a minute to consider, as to the matters which are before us for hearing today, whether we had any ex parte communications, whether we have any ownership interest in the properties, whether we have any business dealings with proponents or opponents of the matters, or whether we have business associates or immediate family who may be either benefited or harmed by a decision in these matters. Are there any commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding any of the items on the agenda?
Peter Harpster. I work for the applicant's representative, so I'll be recusing myself from the first agenda item, presenting it as the applicant's representative, then rejoining the commission.
Thank you, Peter. And I have the same declaration. Last time that I do know Richard Underwood, I've done some business with him 10 years ago. So that's still the same.
Yep, okay.
So anyway, moving right along.
This is Mike Corrales. I have business. Communicate with him on a weekly basis at least, but I will not recuse myself.
Okay, it sounds great. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would object to any commission member hearing any of the items on the agenda? Seeing none, let the record show there were no objections. The order of the hearing shall be as follows. Number one, planning staff shall provide a staff report. The commission may ask questions of staff. 2, the applicant or applicant's representative presentation. 3, in-person public testimony. 4, against or neutral regarding the project, if any. Call-in public testimony, 4 against or neutral regarding the project. Email public testimony, 4 against or neutral regarding the project, to be read into the record by staff. Final staff comments, clarification of public statements that occurred during the testimony portion of the public hearing. Close the public hearing and Planning Commission discussion of the proposed action. Are there any procedural questions before we begin the public hearing? Okay, seeing none. Item number 1, the public hearing for file SUB 2022-04/ SEPA 2022-12. It's a proposal for a subdivision comprising one parcel, parcel number 126-210-021, with approximately 25.66 acres, and creating 22 minimum 1 acre-sized lots. The area where the project is proposed has a zoning designation of rural community 1, zone RC1. The comprehensive plan land use designation is rural shoreline development. I declare the public hearing for SUB 2022-04/ SEPA 2022-12 to be open at 7:25 p.m. May we have staff present the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Now, this presentation was originally prepared for the June 7th meeting, but due to the fact that we had did not have adequate number of commissioners in attendance for this, for a subdivision hearing, we postponed it to today, so hence The slides, I apologize, I did not update before I brought in. So though it says agenda item number 2, it is actually agenda item number 1. And again, the date says June 7th because that's what these were originally prepared for, and that was when this record was created. Other than oral testimony tonight, the record, we're finalizing that record. No additional comments or statements or calls of interest were made in the last 2 weeks. Otherwise, we would have provided those to you because technically the record's still open because we never held the hearing to open or close it. Written record, but you have a right to testify up until and during the public hearing. So, as stated, this is a public hearing for a 22-lot subdivision proposed on parcel number 126210021. Property is generally located west of Columbia River Road, west of Fraser Drive, and east of the Columbia River. Comp plan designation, as mentioned, was rural shoreline development, and the zoning is rural community, RC1. Current property size of the parcel is approximately 25.67 acres. And as mentioned, it is a request to divide that parcel into 22 single-family homes, or lots, residential lots, sorry. And it's proposed to be served with new domestic water from site-specific exempt wells, on-site storage systems, and then on-site storage system for fire, and irrigation is to be provided from an outside source. This is the property. Apparently I turned that off. Yes, I did. So that's Columbia River Road. Columbia River's over here. And then that's going to be one of the accesses, and then this as well. It's kind of the corner of this property has actually been lopped off. So there was a previous rezone for this entire parcel, and they broke off 25 acres of it. I believe it was 156 or somewhere in that area. It was basically one crop circle with the top corner cut off. This is the proposed draft preliminary layout. Single access point onto that road. It's Fraser Road, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And then with temporary turnarounds, these will be connected to future proposed developments that are in process or have already been approved, or depending on which location you're talking about. So just these 22 lots. Site pictures. It's crop circle. On April 28, 2022, staff sent notices to technical agencies, property owners within 1 mile of the Franklin County Graphic. We also posted a pending land use action sign and made a SEPA mitigated determination of non-significance, and the SEPA registry numbers 20220217. There's a lot of twos and zeros. We did not receive any written public comments regarding this proposal, and we did get a inquiry, and then talked about they wanted to come to the public hearing, but they didn't show up on the last one, nor did they show up tonight. Received comments from the following agencies. They're pretty standard commenters on subdivisions, especially in this area. There was initially a SEPA appeal filed by the Paso School District, but that's since been, they've come to an agreement with the developer regarding that, and they've withdrawn their appeal. So the SEPA mitigations, They're pretty standard. The one that triggers, is that based on comments received from the department, DAHP, Department of Archaeological Historical Preservation, and the Yakima tribe, there's a request for a professional archaeological survey be done, as opposed to inadvertent discovery. Project shall comply with the fire code. And then separate source of irrigation shall be implemented and provided. Otherwise, no more than half acre of each lot can be irrigated. And no more than 5,000 gallons per day may be withdrawn from groundwater to serve the development. And a note shall be placed on the face of the plat regarding this limitation. The reality is that if an outside source of irrigation is not provided, there's no way for this development to meet the 5,000 gallon maximum. So it's pretty much a condition of though we say under our, in these conditions, either or, the reality is it won't work unless they do bring in that outside irrigation source, or they'll have to cut the project in half. Franklin County Planning Department staff does recommend that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And if this is the recommendation of the Planning Commission, staff recommends the following findings of fact, conclusions of law, and suggested conditions of approval. Findings of fact is that the adequate provisions have been made for the public health, safety, and general welfare, and for open spaces, drainage ways, roads, alleys, or other public ways, water supply, sanitary. Basically, the infrastructure and the overall needs of the public will be met in this subdivision. Proposed subdivision does contribute to the orderly development and land use patterns in the area. Public use and interest will be served by permitting the proposed subdivision. The proposed subdivision does conform to the general purposes of any applicable policies or plans that have been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. It does conform to the comprehensive plan and zoning requirements, and the subdivision does conform to the general purposes of the subdivision ordinance. There is a much more robust articulation in the staff report regarding each of these items and why staff has recommended that these be adopted as suggested findings of fact. If there's any particular questions or anything you want to go over, just let me know. Conclusions of law, or an application was received for Underwood Phase 1 preliminary plat on March 18th and was deemed complete on March 18th. This 2022, sorry. The SEPA process has been completed and MDNS was issued on April 28, 2022 and was sent to all reviewing agencies and those providing comment following an open record pre-decision hearing on a proposed preliminary. The Planning Commission shall render a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners as to whether the proposal, based on the findings, shall be denied, approved, or approved with mitigations or conditions. And the review criteria of FCC 16.20070 was used to develop the findings of fact. Suggested conditions of approval, in addition to all SEPA required conditions, applicants shall comply with the comments provided by the following agencies: Franklin County Public Works, Benton Franklin Health District, South Columbia Basin Irrigation District, and Franklin County Planning and Building Department. Provisions of water and irrigation, collectively no more than 5,000 gallons of water per day, including for irrigation, may be used from exempt wells in this development, and a separate source of irrigation shall be provided to each lot for the life of the development. A total of 4 conditions comprised of 34 sub-condition applicant requirements are recommended for this proposal as provided in the staff report. I'm not going to say that because that's actually up to you guys to say. And I have a suggested motion and happy to answer any questions. And
So
also
does
the
any
applicant.
commissioner have any questions of staff? Seeing none, does the applicant or applicant's representative wish to speak?
Once again, good evening, Planning Commission staff. My name is Peter Harpster with Octera Engineering. I'm here tonight representing the applicant, Mr. Richard Underwood. We're in favor of staff's recommendation to the Planning Commission to forward a recommendation of approval to the Board of County Commissioners. As mentioned previously, the zoning was AP 20. This Planning Commission approved or made a recommendation for approval that the Board of County Commissioners then approved to change it to RC1. And then after that, we did a lot segregation, again, as was mentioned, to create this 25.66 acre parcel. So this pre-plat is just for those 25.66 acres and not the whole 156. There was just a few issues we found in our review of the staff report. The first two may not matter and were kind of touched on, but page 7 stated that, mentioned the district's SEPA appeal and said that an agreement had not been reached. Of course, you did mention that it has been reached, but I just want to make sure that was clear. Page 9 stated that it's currently zoned AP 20. Again, that might have just been after the fact thing that wasn't updated. The rest of the staff report had it correct in other areas. So, in the conditions, though, on page 18, section 3, Ben Franklin Health District of the suggested conditions of approval, conditions B and C should be combined to be an or statement instead of and.
Why does that
And then
keep
lastly, page
disappearing?
19, section 4, County Planning and Building Department. The fourth bullet of G says the county is not responsible for the maintenance of the private access road. There is no private access road, so that statement can just be removed from the conditions. We did complete an archaeological survey. We got those results back just a couple days ago. Nothing was found, so we'll send that report to staff. And then just submitted a construction stormwater general permit application today. And then lastly, we all know this was pushed out a couple weeks. We're a couple weeks behind schedule now. We kind of already were behind schedule, not to the fault of anybody here, but would be helpful for us. I know you guys, as far as staff, are extremely busy, probably busier than ever with all the growth going on. But if we were able to get this to the Board of County Commissioners within 3 to 4 weeks from now, typically after coming to the Planning Commission, it's 6 or 7 weeks. That'd keep us on the same timeline. Any consideration for that would certainly be appreciated, not just by us, but by Mr. Underwood, who doesn't want to see this project fall behind. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
What was the thought process between the beginning of the 22 lots carved out of the 25 gross acres that you have there? What was the thought on that?
So we're limited to only 21 lots.
Okay. So you're going to start off of Fraser Road and then work your way towards the river then with the development?
Yep. Coming left off of Fraser, going west, and then up into there.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or?
The 5,000 gallons required for the property while it's in development. After that, what will be the system for private irrigation usage, or where will that come from? Is that a separate?
That would be through South Columbia Basin Irrigation District.
Okay. So will that be shared wells on those lots?
No, each lot will get its own exempt well. The irrigation needs to be provided because under state law, for exempt wells, collectively, they cannot draw more than 5,000 gallons of water. So if you needed to use your exempt well, and under state law, you can't irrigate more than a half acre of land with an exempt well. So if they don't get outside irrigation, they'll actually have to cut the project in half, because altogether that development cannot use more than 5,000 gallons of water per day. And it's been calculated out for residential purposes, but not really irrigation. It wouldn't accommodate that. But it's each well, so you have 22 lots. Each lot will have its own exempt well, but the entirety of the subdivision shall not use more than 5,000 gallons a day. So,
I have a question in that regard. So you are going to provide outside irrigation,
Yes.
right? So you'll have there's a holding pond in place?
Yeah, that would be in the, yes, is the answer to your question.
Okay, I mean, is there one now, or,
No, I don't believe so.
so you're going to create one?
Yeah, we'll create one.
What's the capacity going to be for that pond?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can definitely follow up and let you know for sure.
Will it be a pressurized system?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So it'll be almost a self-sustaining type situation with the pond where the order to Skibbon is placed for the water. It's a continuum where it enters the pond and then is dispersed through basically a large pump system,
Yep.
something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because I know that ground out there and it's pretty flat and it's,
Oh, yeah.
you're not
It's
getting
not-
a gravity feed.
what's that?
You're not going to get a gravity feed.
No. I'm just saying that, like over, in other areas where they have had pressurized system, it really is a blessing for everybody concerned, because it can really be a headache when you get all those people in there,
Oh, yeah.
and then half of them can't get water. So, okay, any other questions or? All right, thanks, Peter. In public testimony, for, against, or neutral regarding the project?
Nobody in the public.
Seeing none, call in public testimony, for, against, or neutral regarding the project. Okay. Email public testimony, for, against, or neutral regarding the project? None? Does staff have any final comments?
Just that we'll make sure that we update the staff report before it goes to board to reflect some of those. And I
Okay.
appreciate the applicant catching those, because there's nothing I hate more than going to the board with typos, because I hear about it.
Okay, thanks, Derek. Any clarification of public statements needed by anyone from the audience? Seeing none, the public testimony portion of the public hearing for sub 2022-4/SEPA 2022-12 is closed. Is there any discussion amongst the planning commission prior to entertaining a motion?
Mike Corrales, do you have any discussion on this item?
Could you repeat that?
Do you have any discussion for the subdivision item?
None.
Okay, in that case, I would entertain a motion.
I second.
Somebody needs to
I move that the Franklin County Planning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the 6 findings of fact, the 4 conclusions of law, and 4 conditions of approval detailed in the staff report and approve case file SUB 2022-04.
And second?
I second.
Okay, so Commissioner Knifton made the motion, and Commissioner Gutierrez seconded. Is there any discussion? May we have a roll call, please?
Mike Corrales,
Yes.
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Stacy Knifton,
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion has been approved.
Okay, thank you. So Derek, then the motion has been approved.
Okay. All right.
So do you want to move into the next item then? Okay, item number 2 is a workshop item regarding the revisions to Title 16 subdivisions of the Franklin County Code. Presentation by Nicole Stickney of AHBL, Inc.
Mike, are you leaving?
Thank you so much, guys, for letting me leave, and thank you for letting me do this on the phone.
Oh, yeah,
I
thanks
am.
for your participation.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Bye, guys. Thanks.
See ya.
See you later.
Oh, you want me to hit the clicker? Oh, my God. I don't know if I can handle that. Yeah,
Well, I can
I'll-
do it, but you didn't have a remote one, do you?
actually, I do now, but no, I can do the
I like it.
next slide.
Okay.
I'm good. I was just giving you a hard time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be up there.
No,
Um,
down a ways.
I need to get onto the right.
It's further down.
Well, I had to get onto the right. Dang it.
No, just if you'll scroll down, we'll find it.
Draft 2, Title 16
Yeah.
slides.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Planning Commission members. To introduce myself again, my name is Nicole Stickney. I'm with AHBL. We have been engaged over the years as a land use planning consultant to Franklin County. I see some new faces on the commission, so I welcome you. Thank you for your volunteer time to the county. One thing that we had helped with recently was an update to the comprehensive land use plan for the county. Following that, it is suitable and required through the Growth Management Act for the county to amend their development regulations to meet the goals and policies stated in the comprehensive plan, but also we do a periodic update of these development regulations in order to ensure that the state statutes and laws are met. But just in the broader sense, we noted that there were just a lot of things that could be improved with Title 16 to make them more understandable, the regulations within it, and more easy for the public and for staff to use the regulations as they apply to divisions of land. So that's one of our goals here, is to improve that process. So as you may be aware, Title 16 is division of land in Franklin County, and we are here tonight to do a workshop meeting. We met on this previously back in March, and so some of the commission members had been given an opportunity to have kind of a look at all of this, but what I'd like to do tonight is just give another high-level view of it all, talk to you about what we're proposing at this point, and hopefully by the end of this meeting, you'll be comfortable in scheduling a public hearing so that we can move forward with the proposed amendments. So as I mentioned, updates to Title 16 for subdivisions is needed for a couple of different reasons. One is that we're looking to ensure consistency across jurisdictions. So we want to make sure that there are measures in place to attain that goal. Of course, we want to comply with the State Growth Management Act, and we're also just looking for opportunities to clean up and modernize the existing code. Some of the regulations that you find haven't been updated in many, many years, and so there's always an opportunity to make improvements for that. You can go to the next slide. So as a reminder, this Planning Commission has received a preview of these working draft amendments, which have been reviewed by staff and agencies. Nothing's locked in. We're looking for public comment. That's going to be part of the process here. It also needs to go through SEPA environmental review, but we are looking forward to going through that process, but wanted to start here with you so that you could be comfortable before we launch that officially.
This does work, I just don't see the arrows.
Okay.
That way you're in control.
That way I'm in control. That's not a problem. Okay, overview of changes. So one thing we wanted to improve upon was the organization of Title 16. So we have made some changes. Nothing too dramatic, but we wanted to make sure that things are sort of in the location that you would expect to find different items. Regulatory changes are being considered here, and again, that is to make sure that we are consistent with the Growth Management Act, that these set of regulations interface correctly with the zoning regulations, critical areas protections, things like that. As I mentioned, we're looking to do process improvements, so where there's an opportunity to make sure that things are evaluated at the proper stage, say at land division rather than down the road with building permits and other things that can happen, we want to make sure that we take that opportunity. We have noted areas where there are unnecessary clarifications or expanded details. And then also we went through and we did some, we wanted to make sure there was consistency and improvements to grammar throughout the title. So I do want to mention that these are subject to codification corrections. So especially things like anything you see capitalized, you may think, oh, this should be capitalized or that shouldn't be capitalized. At the end of the day, it'll be up to the codifier, and they don't capitalize very much at all. So I just call that out in case you're wordsmithing, you know, maybe you're the kind of person that notices things like that. We'll do our best to get it where we think they'll have it, but they may make changes anyhow. So what are the key changes that we're looking at with our proposal here? One key change is we want to modify the frontage requirement for residential lots. What we have found is that the existing code is very inflexible in terms of allowing for smaller lot sizes. There are frontage requirements that require quite a lot of width at the road frontage, and they just don't match up very well with what the city in Pasco has for their zoning regulations and what the county might be able to allow in those areas that are in the urban growth area for the city of Pasco. So we want to provide some alignment there and some improvement. We're going to clarify information on individual wells. You heard tonight a preliminary plat proposal that has individual wells proposed. We want to make sure that Title 16 speaks directly to those matters and also provides clear guidance to developers and reviewing officials alike on how those can work within the context of our situation here in the state. As we've talked about before, we fortunately don't have in-stream water rules, which are linked with the Hearst decision, which really limits wells and where wells can be placed. Because we don't have adjudicated water rights here and we don't have some of these in-stream water rules, Franklin County is still able to proceed with development, allowing for exempt wells within the provisions of what the state statutes and state laws allow for. Another key change is that we're looking to modify the number of allowable lots with a short plat. And I may need a refresher on this one just because it's been a little while, but I'm pretty sure we're going from 4 lots to, oh, here it is, 9 or fewer lots within the UGA. areas would be considered a short plat. Anything that's outside of the UGAs would still be 4 or fewer lots. So that's one change that we're proposing. Just delineate when someone needs to go down the path of a short plat versus a preliminary plat. And then finally, we've, another key change is we've removed the specific fees from the code. There's fees kind of peppered throughout the existing regulations. It would be our recommendation for the county to adopt a fee schedule instead. A fee schedule can be updated more frequently, and when you're taking those types of administrative details out of your development regulations, that can also benefit the county just to make it easier down the road when they want to make changes. It can be more fluid that way. Anything that actually gets changed within the language and within the whole title of Title 16 has to go through this process, as you know, with the SEPA environmental review, has to go to the Department of Commerce so that they can ship it out to different state agencies for comments. So whenever you want to just change something quite minor and you have to go through that process, it's really burdensome on the county. And so being able to sort of separate out those different details would be helpful. Plus, a lot of jurisdictions do it that way. They don't have it all in their code. They have a separate fee schedule. It's a little bit cleaner, too. All right, so going into a little more detail now, I gave you kind of an overview, but just talked about frontage requirements a little more. The section that we're looking at is 1616.040. That is the section pertaining to minimum lot dimensions for residential lots. And then there's also some changes related to that we've incorporated in the chapter itself. So as I mentioned before, we want to reduce those frontage requirements. That will allow more flexibility and probably foster more development to occur with compact development type standards. And that is appropriate within those urban growth areas where city services such as sewer and water and all of that are available. Secondly, the individual wells. I think I pretty much covered that. See if there's any other detail I can provide on that. We have quite a large section now about individual wells and talking about the 5,000 gallons of water draw limitations, things like that. I think we also specified that, you're limited to stock watering and then irrigating half an acre with those individual wells. So we have looked to address that. And one of the things that we're doing is citing what the current code is so that so that anyone who's reading Title 16 who wants to know about exempt wells, they'll know exactly where to go in the state RCWs to see those state codes and know that the project's going to be in compliance. I can answer any questions about changing the allowable lots. Again, we're looking at just changing those standards within the urban growth area to be more appropriate to what types of development is likely going to occur in there. And honestly, this will be friendlier to developers and landowners along the way. So we are looking for those opportunities to sort of remove the red tape, if you will, and clear the way to simplify the process. So our next steps are as follows. We'll need to do a SEPA determination and run a comment period on it. This will be a SEPA non-project checklist and put that out for that review. We can do another workshop if needed. This is technically the second Planning Commission workshop on this item. What we'd like to do next is ideally, if you're comfortable, plan for the public hearing to occur and put out a notice and gain more public interest and input on this. Eventually, this would go to the Board of County Commissioners through a public hearing, and then we'd bring to them an adoption ordinance with a recommendation from this commission. What you've been given, I believe, is a document, and it's dated March 14th, 2022. It says copy for Planning Commission review, and it shows those track changes. So it shows everything that we're proposing to add with those track changes and anything that we're also proposing to remove in a different color. So it should be pretty straightforward. We've also put notes in along the way where we felt it would be needed or appropriate to sort of explain, well, here's why this change is occurring if it wasn't something that would be more obvious. And we've also given you a summary. So the summary is just a 2-page, high-level look at everything. It does drill down in some detail, but it's telling you where, something is new, something has been modified, and some reminders that we need to update forms and things like that once any of this takes effect. I do want to remind you that staff has taken time to go through this document, as did my team at AHBL. We've also asked for other outside reviewers to take a look, so the county Public Works Department, county engineer, and the surveyor, being the 2 folks over there that we notified, they provided their feedback, as has the Benton Franklin Health District. Yep. So we feel like we've done our homework to this point, but now we're ready to hear from you. What are some changes that you would like to see, and what questions do you have so that you'll feel ready to go to a public hearing with this? The last thing I'll close with is, when we brought this to this Planning Commission before, and we looked at the very beginning of Title 16 subdivisions, there was a bunch of purpose statements that we added in, and we don't need to keep those proposed purpose statements if you prefer us to remove those before we go to a public hearing for a copy for the public to look at. A lot of those purpose statements, we think that they're fitting. We think that they're a good idea to have them there. They talk about flexibility with permits and creative approaches, things about providing incentives to preserve certain lands, things like protecting the county's environmental resources. But if you feel that that language is not necessary in the development regulations, that's perfectly fine too, because certainly these are sort of just repeating what's already in the comprehensive plan. So this would be just a restatement of some of those different purpose statements behind the subdivision code. So it can go either way. Just wanted to highlight that too. So with that, I'll just open any questions or discussion that you might have. Thank you.
Quick question process. Because this is non-legislative,
It is legislative.
that's right, it's a code change. It's not the SMP or the, yep, okay, never mind. That's right, we're checking to amend a.
So on that topic, this is a legislative item. That means that you can talk to anyone who has questions, anybody that you do business with. You're not limited, you don't have to worry about ex parte communication like you do with the quasi judicial matters. So,
That's what I meant to ask.
yes, yes.
This is not a quasi judicial, it is a legislative.
This is legislative, so we're setting policy, the county will be setting policy, the planning commission's role is to recommend policy on land use matters to the Board of County Commissioners. But again, there's no limitation to the number of hearings that we can have. We don't need to worry about disclosing ex parte communications, anything like that. It's very free-flowing, so no worries on that.
I have a couple questions. First off, thanks for the additional presentation. Before I was on the planning commission, you did the last one. I watched that video online, and it was lengthy but super informative, so appreciate that. The first question, the fee schedule that's proposed, has that been created yet, or are you guys waiting until this has been adopted?
No, that would be purely done by staff.
Okay.
We have to actually, we're going to have to figure out because it's not just in Title 16 that we have these fees scattered throughout. So one of the things we need to decide is whether we will start with Title 16 and maybe some other fees or whatever that aren't in code, and then go through the process of pulling them out, exactly how that's going to be set up. I'm from a jurisdiction that utilized, up in Arrowhead Heights, everybody up there used fee, we call them fee resolutions, but it's the same thing. And it's everything. Like in our circumstance up there, it had all the fees. So eventually what I would like to see is that there's a county adopted fee schedule. So you just have one piece of paper. Let's say I need to go get a subdivision, fingerprinted, and pay for my tabs. It's all on a single document, all of it. It could be pages. But, each department will, over time, that's my vision of it. We'll see how it goes. Right now, we're primarily focused on just getting building and planning fees in that document. I think that when other agents or departments see that document, I think they'll be asking, how can we get on that list? And a fee resolution is reviewed usually every 2 years. So if we were to try to change the fee, any of the fees in the document, we have to go through a full-blown development code change process, SEPA, 60-day review, planning commission, okay? Public hearing. Well, the public doesn't really, and the planning commission, nothing against y'all, but how much the county wants to charge for something is really an administrative thing based on costs and things like that. It's not a matter of opinion usually, or things like that. So first go through all that. Commerce has to sign off on my fee change. I don't believe that was the intent of the law, but it's the way the law is, and that's what happens that's for me, but the fees aren't established, but we will be doing when we put that together, we will be doing a cost analysis, determining what it costs for the county to actually process each piece and all of that stuff, how much time. And out of that will also there'll be data and a resource to help, for us to make sure that if we've got areas that we can streamline or whatever, that's part of that analysis, will help us find some of those as well.
I would add that at a minimum, if for some reason the county isn't ready to adopt, new fees at the time that this gets adopted, you could always just have a resolution that has what is currently stated in the code, and that way you can move forward, and then later that can be amended, so that things aren't held up.
So if we
Because you
do
could
it
run out
for
of time on stuff.
If we do it right, we'll have that fee resolution basically rolling at about the same time as adoption by the board, so that as they adopt the new things, it happens at the same time. Man, I got it. Excuse me.
So you're talking about, Derek, when you say a schedule of fees, you're talking about a piece of paper that has all the fees on it, right,
Yep.
for the county?
Yep.
But you also have, say, each individual that comes in, whether it's a building permit, are they going to have specific, Public Works has a fee, Parks has a fee. Is there,
Eventually, I would like to see a document like that, but I can't speak to what those departments will do. But
Right.
Building and planning will have, so you'll have, just, if you look at our building code, that's where you'll see. Now, building code's nice because I don't have to go through all that rigmarole with it, because it's a different type of code. But we'll pull those fees out. There'll be tables. There'll be all of that will be in our fee resolution as well.
what I've found in the past, which was really helpful, is that after you, say, submit a set of plans, for instance, there's not only the fee for the building permit, but after the inspector reviews the application, then he'll say, okay, here, you 1, 2, 3, then health department, right on down the line, and then you just go through that, and then that's a pretty nice list of a pathway, to get back to be able to pull the permit, because without the other fees, it's not going to happen.
Right. It's just we don't control what those other agencies or I mean, we can say what the
Right,
general stuff
but
is.
say, for instance, if somebody applies for a permit,
Uh-huh.
they have to have a copy of the health department's septic application
Correct,
in order for acceptance.
right.
And the other thing I was wondering is there's about 5 jurisdictions here in the Tri-Cities that deal with different building departments,
Yep,
and they'll have different ways of evaluating a set of plans.
yep.
And now, do you guys take, by a square footage process, say living space, to say garage is another,
Yes.
and break it out that way, your porches, or?
I would have to double check. I know that, like, for example, storage buildings have a different valuation than residential
Right.
space. So it's actually all prescriptive to some degree. So local jurisdictions have a bit of leeway, but with the building department, you're supposed to break even. You know, we're not supposed to be generating so any dollars generated in the building department are supposed to go back. If we go over, say, it's supposed to go back specifically to that department. So that's something, but each fee is going to be based on a lot of different variables at that local level. You've got what you're paying, your cost to do the business. There may be jurisdictional boundary changes. There may be additional things that are going on in the process or the way that they've got it laid out. But the building code in the Washington State gives you kind of a range, a basis, but then you have things like market values and some other things out there that can affect those numbers. And, but that's why you got that difference. Some will lump things together where other people are breaking it out. For example, in Airway Heights, it was, you paid $9,000 to get connected to water and sewer, not including your parts and installation of the actual condition. Those are just your GFCs.
Right.
Other jurisdictions charge $800. However, they would charge you $300 for this. You had to use this type of a vault, and they would provide you the vault at $700. And when you run the numbers, you find out that, oh yeah, we're a little bit more, but we lump it all together in one thing, whereas they nickel and dime you. And yeah, we were a few $100s more, but when you looked, it looked like we were like 10 times more. But we didn't lump, because we lumped all the costs into this thing. See, and when you start getting in, that's why it's hard to do cost comparisons between jurisdictions, is because different staffing levels, different. So we generally try to be in the same ballpark, but the reality is our fees are going to be based on our costs and needs, independent of what's going on in another jurisdiction. They may have other revenue sources or other things coming into their thing to where they can either have their prices lower or they have costs that make it so their stuff's higher. And so we just do that. We look at ourselves. But yes, if we turn out that we're doing, wow, that's 6 times as much as any other jurisdiction, that's going to be a smell test thing to go, why are we so far off?
Yeah, well, when you get your fee, I mean, it's not like you can't go back through your plan and kind of arrive at, say, okay, this was based on
And that we will
square
provide.
footage.
We will provide those elements. You'll have the chart that'll tell you, 10,000 plus is this much, 10,000,
Right.
these ranges. Those types of things would be articulated in the fee schedule.
Yeah.
For building and planning, that's all I can speak to.
And different ways of doing it. You arrive at the same point,
Yep,
so.
just like math.
Yeah. Well, some architects, they'll charge, so much, say $275 per square foot of living space. But that's based on, say, a atypical house that has, say, a 3-car garage. They may have 800 to 1,000 square feet of covered porches, that kind of thing, but they still use the living space, say 4,000 square feet.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas they could go, well, I'll charge less for the living space, so much for the garage, and framers do that too.
We measure,
Yeah.
we measure from the exterior footprints. Quite often when we're looking at plans, we're looking at interior footprint. And it doesn't seem like much, but it's 6 inches.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Full
the depth of the
length.
wall.
And it comes out to hundreds of square feet,
Right.
depending on the size of the house.
Right.
So, yeah. But
Well,
we're a bit
yeah.
off topic, I think.
If you want more square footage, you take an outside measurement, and you want less square footage. You go to the interior, which, I don't know anybody that does that, but
And then you got with people that are trying to get in under the wire.
People that want to show less square footage.
Yeah. Like say you're building a 30,000 square foot ag building, you
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
do the SEPA, so you come in at 28,999,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like,
With maximum building.
you know, and,
Right.
you know, so.
So I just have one more question. For boundary line adjustment, and I agree with what you said that all these are very pro-developer, except this one, it seems. The 15 days to 21 days, and if federal agencies are involved to 45, is that calendar or business days?
That'd be calendar days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that,
It has to do with the fact that some agencies consistently can't seem to make the 15-day response.
yeah,
And as much as we'd love to cut them out of the equation, we're not allowed to by law.
yeah.
So,
Well, and that was, I get it. I have to deal with federal agencies. It seems their response time is triple what anybody else's is.
We
I
have-
was just wondering how often it's happening. Obviously enough to warrant a change.
So any of the agricultural lands where you have Bureau of Reclamation facilities,
Yep.
that's gonna do it right there. And the county will get a letter back from the South Columbia Basin Irrigation District and a letter back from the Bureau of Reclamation, and sometimes they don't even jive. So sometimes we also have to go back to them and say, well, wait a minute, what did you mean about this and that? They do a very thorough review. They want to make sure that there are plats and surveys out there that show their facilities and their monuments and everything else according to their way of doing it. They have a certain way of
Yeah.
recording those items, and so it's important that they look at them, and it's important that we get the feedback, so things don't get missed and things aren't out there that are incorrect. But it is a bit of a process.
Yeah. And I will say in their defense, we're dealing with USBR right now on a couple different projects. They're just so understaffed.
Yep.
They can't help it. So,
and sometimes I follow him. It's like, well, it's not just us.
right.
It's Franklin County, Benton County. I don't know what all, I would assume Adams, you know, it's basically everything in that circle around them, and I have no idea how many counties out that goes.
Yeah.
You know, and who all they're actually dealing with and this and that, you know, whereas, and usually if we get it late, if we get one at all, sometimes they don't even send us anything, but if it gets late, then it's 2 weeks sometimes, after we've sent out the preliminary approval letter.
Yeah.
In fact, we just had that happen today. We got one on something that we sent out, we approved last week, short plat for the city. Whatever, the point is a week or two after
Yeah.
we said, you know, and it's just, because,
So-
yeah, we ain't the only ones.
I would imagine that Derek and the other planners on staff are gonna still wanna move those out as quickly as possible to get them out for review. So this is not to disincentivize county staff,
Yeah.
in any way from processing things with the speed, and efficiency, but it's to recognize that there are things outside of their control. And so if we put a time restriction on them that they can't meet anyways,
Yeah.
we
that's
should
fair.
be more accurate in the code.
I got a question. Are you done?
No, I was just, my last comment was just gonna be that I'd definitely be in favor of scheduling a public hearing and moving along with this.
Okay, good, thank you. I have a question. Well, thank you once again for your presentation. I was also, along with Commissioner Harvester here, he was online, I was present here that day. And as a non-commissioner, it seemed to me like a great presentation, a little lengthy looking from the outside in, but now it just seems like time just flies by so fast. So thank you once again. Just a quick question. We mentioned short plats. Under section 16, how is the change determined of allowable number of lots that can be created in a short plat from 9 or fewer lots within the UGA and 4 or fewer outside the UGA instead of 4 or fewer in any location? Is there some sort of algorithm that you put together to determine the 9 versus
So the state allows up to 9 lots to be created through the short plat process. It's up to local jurisdictions to decide if they want to use that standard or use a different standard. Before, it was always 4 throughout the state, but then the state wanted to incentivize development, and they changed the rules. I also should mention that recently, I think it was about 2 years ago, the legislature passed House Bill 1923, which was to address the affordable housing crisis. And one of the measures that they recommended, and they actually incentivized local governments to look at taking, along with a whole host of other options, was to increase the number of lots that could be created through the short plat process. And that was for the specific purpose of bringing housing costs down if we can, to streamline the development process where lots are created for homes. So that's another reason why we thought, we'll suggest 9 in this case, within the urban growth area. Probably wouldn't be appropriate, right, for the other remainder of the county to go to that many of lots. 4 is a good number, we believe, for the unincorporated areas. But for those areas where we are looking to concentrate development, make best use of existing infrastructure that's in place, we think going up to 9 is appropriate at this time for Franklin County.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And to your point about, there was a lot to discuss. I mean, this is a beefy update. I don't want to minimize what we're trying to do here. There are a lot of changes. Some of them have been long coming. The county just hasn't been updating things, frequently. And it took us a lot of time to go through our work to even get it to the point where we're bringing it to you for a first look now. So I'm hoping that through our efforts and through our explanation and anything that we can provide along the way, that we'll make it as painless as possible. But by no means do I want to diminish the types of changes we're proposing here. It's going to be a lot, and it's going to have a broad effect once passed, if this all gets through.
You mentioned earlier that there was a summary sent over to us with the changes highlighted, you quoted. I didn't, okay, it was in the stuff.
Yeah, it looks like this.
And, well, yeah, there's the
Summary.
little, I call it the 2-pager, this one, but then there's that one.
Got it.
Right here.
And again, I have
Yep.
no problem,
got all
I'm happy to
the
send that
revisions
out
in
to
it.
everybody. Again, I've sent it 3 times. So I figured everybody had a copy, but I will send it again. It's not a problem. Because what's nice about
Yeah, I
having
got it.
that is you can play with it. Just, you can make your mock-up, because it's a Word version, if I remember right. Isn't it a Word?
I think we've mostly just sent out the PDF.
Was it just PDFs?
So
I-
Okay.
we can send out a Word copy.
No, I don't want to, that starts getting a little too weird.
Here's what I like about the PDF that I provided you.
Yeah, that's-
It has fewer colors.
Yeah.
If you just print it out directly from Word, unless you do some tweaks, what I can teach you how to do, you can get it to print fewer colors, but you'll start getting yellow text and it'll be messy.
No, I thought and then each time you get a comment or you get a different color, so.
It's a different person, yeah. So
Every person.
I would recommend just sticking with the PDF, but certainly if you have line-by-line comments or you want to provide some feedback, there's something that you noticed or you feel like there's a word out of place, let's try to find that and let's try to get through that. Whatever way is easiest for you, we can take comments in a variety of ways. Yeah. And you can even mark up a document and then they can scan it in and send it to me as long as you write nice. If you scribble it, I can't read it. But yeah, anything that's easiest for this group, we want to accommodate.
HBL's they've got even, they've got stuff we don't have apparently, or staff that knows how to use the stuff we have better than we do. I don't know. But it's amazing. They, shared documents, stuff like that is their bread and butter, really. I mean, yes, I know it is called, but knowing and doing are 2 different things. They have to deal with that with me all the time. Yes, I know. I have no idea how to do it. And it's going to take me a lot longer to do it. Never mind. So, were there any other questions?
Hey, Nicole, I just want to ask you about the 9-lot, which you're talking about, the density there. So that obviously is going to be an area that's going to be within the UGA, right? But it's going to be closer to town. I mean, you're not going to see that kind of density as you move out into the country.
Yeah, so what I want to emphasize is this doesn't change the allowed density. This doesn't change the zoning code. What this changes is what process is used for division of land when somebody has land they want to divide and they know they want a certain number of lots out of it. So for example, if somebody has 2 acres and it's out in the donut hole, so it's surrounded by a city incorporated area and you can get sewer to it, you can get city water to it, everything else. If they know that they can get 4 lots out of it through the short plat process, that might be where they stop. But if they can get some additional lots that meets the zoning, they might say, well, I'll try to get those extra lots,
Yeah.
knowing that I don't have to go through the whole preliminary plat process. It's less,
But it's
investment
It always
and time.
it's always initiated with the zoning is the first
the
step.
zoning will always drive the density.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't want to tell you that you can get more lots within a
Right.
certain area of space. That's not the case. What this does is it just decides which process you're going to move out forward on when you're dividing your land. Are you going through the short plat process or the long plat process? And as you know, anything that goes through the short plat process is administrative. It's not going to come to the planning commission. It's not going to go on to the board of county commissioners. Anything that's in the long plat process does go through that. So developers know it's going to take them longer, and it's potentially kind of a different risk scenario for them depending on which course they have to go through. So that's where, you'll lose the ability to see maybe as many plat applications. That might be a result. But the benefit is that, as I said, it's an easier process for developers to get through. It shouldn't be any less quality of development. I wouldn't say that it's going to change what their conditions are, things like that. But what it's going to change is the process they have to go through. And
Well, on one hand, we
maybe some of the
talked about
details.
the city being the purveyor of water and sewer, which they want to do on a high-density type situation. It's not cost-efficient for them to run these utilities out to larger lots. And typically, like what we're seeing here is that if an applicant comes in to get an AP 20 area rezoned to, say, RC1, which is, what we do all the time, then they can go to either, probably 1 acre lots would be the standard on that. And what I've seen on RC5 is where the developer has established that zoning and then come in and cut that in half to say 2.2 acres or something like that.
That's one of the other things that, and we'll be taking care of more of that was mostly in the zoning code, but getting our zoning map and some of our zoning designations, especially in like certain landmarks like Basin City or Eltopia, to match up with what's actually on the ground as opposed to, like for example, in Eltopia, that residential area is RC1. None of them are 1 acre. I mean, there's a couple in there that are RC, 1 acre lots. Most of them are between a third and a half. So why didn't we just make that RS20? These types of things going through. Basin City's got kind of the same thing too. We have to look at these things because it starts getting into, you need to control and ensure, and that's why, like Innovative Short Plat's got the self-controls on it to where you're limited in number of units, you got the 20 acre reserves, all these other things out in the blocks, because That's ag land. It's for ag uses, open space. It is not for high-density development. You want to do high-density development, you got to go down towards the city. That's what the city's for. That's why it's full of high-density development. And, you know, we don't have the resources for services, because that's another thing. You approve a subdivision or something, you've got to be able to make sure that service providers are able to provide the services. These are the things that we look at when we're doing these reviews, and that they agree to provide the services. Because if, you know, I want this group to do something for me, and they're like, no, or it's cost prohibitive, you know, these types of things are, so out in the blocks, it's just a completely different development. Our job out there is to protect the farmland and minimize non-ag-related, it's not prohibit, but minimize non-ag-related development out in those areas. You want to do urban development, you either got to go to in the UGA, because that's what it's there for. That's why we just proposed to expand it by, 3,800 acres, is to accommodate, again, something that hadn't been really done for a while. And basically we had to take care of it in 8 years. 8 years of paradigm shifts and development changes and stuff like that. We did something in 08, and we did it on, well, actually, in 08, and then I think we shrank the UGA a little bit. And then we got hit with this growth thing. So then we had to go for big, but that's where that high density stuff is. Basin City, Altopia, maybe Merle's Corner, you know, there might be a couple of other areas to where we would look at potentially increasing density, because those areas are already effectively to an urban scale with services and impact to the area. Those types of things. But again, that's all going to happen in the zoning. This is a big change. Wait till you see what we're doing with the zoning code, because it's even bigger.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I can speak from personal experience. I built my house back in 1990 off of Birch Road in a Lambert.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and at that time, there wasn't any,
Limits.
there wasn't any limits.
Yeah, it was 5 acre limits.
Yeah, it's 5 acres, so there was 35 acre lots.
Mm-hmm.
And there was actually, well, more than that, there was 300 acres were carved up into two owners, 150, 150. Well, it got to the point where even up on top, there was two lots that were cut up into acre and a quarter. If they allowed that, and the farmers just flipped. And it came down here and just shut the whole thing down. Because I know, and I've been a farmer, you know, I had about my first 5 acre lot out there in 1983, and then 10 more, 10 more acres.
Mm-hmm.
So I supported that kind of angle now. I don't know where I'm at now with the thing, but the reality is, you know, it's just we are in a Lambert. It's an interesting situation. There's been a lot of growth, and that whole corridor down through there eventually, you know, is populated, you know, right down to the river, down through there. So, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I know that one of the bigger farmers there, Alexander, came down. He has that cattle ranch there, and he said, "No, I don't want, you know, these people coming out here and smelling manure and you know and spraying and everything goes with it." And he's like, "I don't want it." And whoever put the gavel down next, it's over. It was over that quick, because there were people in there, this patchwork of my neighbors that saying, "Well, I got my 5 acres, I want to chop this thing up." And by then, you know, the open spaces and everything came into play. This was early 90s, and this is 93, 94.
Well, and that's the thing. That's why we have the right to farm
Yeah.
ordinances and various other things. Because again, Franklin County is not seeking to turn into a big gigantic subdivision.
Right.
we're proud of our heritage of farming, and we want to keep it that way. And frankly, that's what the GMA was created to do, was protect farmland. It's one of the 3 resources. Is it just 3? Timber, mineral, yeah, and ag, yeah.
Right.
And we don't have timber, but we definitely have ag, and we have some of the freakiest, awesomest soil in the world. So it's a valuable resource. That said, there's folks that don't value that in the same way. They have different perspectives of what's important in their lives and or whatever. And we got to find that balance. And for me, from a planner's perspective, it's you want urban life, you want rural life, you're going to get rural life. And don't ask me for urban services.
Yeah, you can go to the county
You
website and
want
go to the west. and
you
read
want to
that.
live with
Yeah.
urban amenities and all these bells and whistles and neat walking trails and wave to your neighbors as you're sitting, all that stuff, walkable community, that's urban. It doesn't have a place except for in very small pockets in a rural environment. I mean, you could have, along a shoreline or something, maybe you develop a tourist area or something like that. But it ends at a dead line, and it shall not expand across it, these types of things. And when you're on that fringe area, right in between, you're like, come on, just one more lot, what's one more lot gonna do, And I understand that perspective, but you gotta draw a line somewhere, and when you do draw that line, you gotta stick to it. But periodically, you've got to review everything, look at it, see whether or not these ideas still make sense with the current environment that we're in, and what the goals and the populations change and things like that. And you have to continually be morphing that, and that's what this work is about. Because I think the last time it was done is 2008, if not before.
A long time ago. So just to restate again, the change that we're proposing, where short plats could be up to 9 lots in the urban growth areas, that will not increase density whatsoever. That is just, density will still be determined by the underlying zoning. It's just a change of the process. And then to underscore that, also I want to emphasize that the county has adopted flexible thresholds for categorical exemptions for SEPA. And unless SEPA is invoked for other reasons, such as lands covered by water,
Grading.
yeah, certain other triggers. The trigger for residential dwelling units in Franklin County is 20 dwelling units. So it's not going to change. It's going to be compliant with what we already have in place with SEPA. And so that's one less barrier against this change that we're proposing for the 9 lots with the short plat. The codes will complement each other.
So tonight, do we need to vote on scheduling a public hearing or just nod?
We just need
in all agreement?
direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you guys feel it's time for us to move on, then we'll figure out the schedule between us and what other things we have going on, and then we'll schedule that public hearing. August, I would say, is probably the earliest. It's a little late to do it for July, unless we do it as a special meeting or something like that. But we have to get out the advertisement, the notice to the public and everything like that. And then probably want some time to incorporate the written comments or to look at those, see if there's things or recommendations that we want to make based on those public comments before we hold the public hearing, But we can, if that's the will of the planning commission and the ones that show up get the vote, we'll just get that set up. But we have a timeline. We want to try to get it done as fast as possible, but also ensuring that it's the best product that we can produce. So, because we have other things to do, too. One piece at a time.
Sounds good. That's right.
So, from what I'm hearing, get geared up, start moving forward with the
Yeah.
public hearing, and we'll get that stuff
Yes.
set up. Okay.
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
you,
Nicole. So, is that it for tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the Kohler subdivision was approved. The 2-lot portion of Rivercrest was approved this morning by the board. Normally I get the resolutions that day. I haven't gotten them yet. Once I do, I'll forward them out to folks and then we initiated the Shoreline Master Program, which is another item that AHBL's working on, pretty much doing it for us. We've hired them. We got a grant from Ecology. There's staff time involved and things like that, but basically, that's the Shoreline Masters Program. We have to do that as part of the comp plan to make sure that our SMP matches up with any changes to our comp plan.
Well, and then mention the CAO update too.
Oh, yeah, the CAO, Critical Areas Ordinance. That's also tied, we have to do that with the comp plan. When you do the comp plan, you have a year to do the CAO update. The SMP is scheduled similar to a comp plan where it's on this cycle, and so you have to start doing it. And that, all of those came together about the same time for us because of the way our comp plan was approved. Couldn't really start working on the SMP until that got approved. And then the CAO, so we're wrapping the CAO and the SMP in together. CAO is Critical Areas
We're
Ordinance.
using Ecology's money to update the SMP as they've set forth, but also to do that critical areas ordinance separately, because we can relate them. And part of that will also pay for a sub-consultant to AHBL, which is Herrera Environmental Consultants, to do the best available science research. So we're just packaging things together to make it.
What's an example of a CAO?
Oh, see, so the 5 critical
Shorelines.
areas are
Yeah.
Wetlands,
Right,
geographically hazardous areas, so that could be erosion hazard areas, landslides,
yeah.
fish and wildlife habitat conservation areas, frequently flooded areas, and what did I not list?
Did you do habitat?
Oh, critical aquifer recharge areas,
Oh,
so
yeah.
wellhead protection areas for protecting groundwater resources. So the county already has a critical areas ordinance, but it's out of date. It's not tuned up with ecology guidance on like wetland buffers, things like that. All those provisions. It also needs to be reflective of the best available science. So things like, okay, what do we know about the wrinkled soils in Franklin County? You know, drilling down to those types of details. But once we have that and we're working on kind of remodeling that code, there is a section of the SMP that speaks directly to critical areas which are in shoreline jurisdiction. And that's where we're able to kind of combine these, twin these up, right? And so they'll have a parallel path.
So is that what we were kind of talking about, maybe increasing the density once you establish these critical areas as an interface with the developer? When they come in, they would be allowed to maybe, you know, build more units?
You're thinking of maybe like a conservation type subdivision where you know that you have a set
Yeah,
aside for
yeah, exactly.
environmentally critical areas, and then
Right.
you can move your density around.
Right,
That could be looked at some point. That would be more related to what we were talking about tonight with our subdivision regulations
Mm-hmm.
or the zoning code, but we can't get to that point until we do these other kind of incremental changes
This is
first.
literally, what dirt are you digging in? And what is its slide risk? And slopes and various other things. And again, it's not that you can't build in these areas, it's just that you have to do additional
yeah,
mitigation.
do your homework.
Wetland, I don't know why you would want to build in a wetland, but let's say you did. Usually how that's addressed is, one, you're paying a lot more because you've got to do a lot of weird things to your
Well, if you could
foundation
you
and
can have
everything.
like a floodplain or something,
And,
right?
Well-
and then second, usually it's done through like, okay, well, I'm gonna destroy 10 acres of wetland, so I buy 20 acres of wetland over on the west side. So that's something I'd like to look at.
Look at
sometime,
wetland
too.
mitigation banking.
Yeah.
Wetlands are a tricky thing because it really has to do with their functions and values. So you
Yeah,
have to have a
yeah.
biologist go out there and do an assessment. But then based on what those functions and values are of the individual wetland, then you know what category it's in, and then how careful you have to be around the buffers of it, how far those buffers go out, and what type of activities can.
Yeah, so
And
you're,
uses can
you're doing
surround.
some development, you have to improve the area that
Yeah.
you're working in.
And you guys
So
won't
you're-
like all of it
Nope.
Well, yeah, I know, I know about it.
because we have to adhere to the state regulations,
Yep.
and it's
Yeah.
good. You're going to be uncomfortable with a lot of it, but we're going to try to make it as.
Yeah, you just don't go up into the woods or near a lake and start,
Yeah.
bulldozing, moving
Well, you
dirt.
can, but you get in
You're,
trouble.
Try to make it as palatable as
They come
possible.
by and want to see, well, how are these fish gonna swim through here? And now you gotta build a stream.
Oh, yeah.
So, no, I
One of the
don't,
first things I had to deal with was code enforcement action regarding the party that had,
yeah,
they thought they were helping the river,
Mhm.
the creek flow.
right.
Oh, God. Don't put a bulldozer in a river, or creek. But yeah, so those things are starting. We're really starting to focus on, more of the long-term planning. I was hoping to get to these things a little sooner when I came down here, but frankly, it's not bad, a couple years in, to be able to be at this stage. And we really wouldn't be able to do it if not for Nicole and AHBL's history with the county. They've got a lot of stuff, and at some points, they were the county planner. So, on occasion. So Nicole has really got it's rare that you're able to find a party or a consultant that has that in-depth understanding of your organization. So I really appreciate the work they do, and they do good quality work, so. But other than that, I'm done unless you guys have any particular questions.
Okay, then, I'll adjourn, planning commission, meeting is adjourned at 8:48.